So welcome back then. This is the next episode of Level Racing Coffee Club, and I'm proud to introduce you to Dale Cobb. Welcome, Dale.
Thanks, Simon. Glad to be here.
Okay, then as we dive into this one, then first topic of conversation is if you were out, what would be your favourite coffee on a coffee ride?
Tends to be a flat white with me. Sometimes if I'm really feeling wacky, I'll go for oat milk as well, but that's my usual coffee of choice.
A flat white. Quite a few of us are flat white lovers. Um, yeah, it depends, doesn't it, on your ride, what you fancy on the day. But flat white is a good choice there. So going into this then, how did you get involved in Level then?
Well, I was part of the group that moved across from WTRL. There was a move probably about 2 years ago where a lot of us left and we looked at becoming our own club, but actually decided to carry on. And after a discussion between Steve Milliken and Cy Bradley at the time, we joined Level, which I think has been a huge success actually, because a lot of the guys that came across haven't stayed in that old bubble that we had. There are actually people that ride across the whole platform now. So, guys like Paul Carr, Nick, and Darrell and people like that, are now well known as riders within Level. And we've still got that core that rides in the morning as well. So, in all, I think it's been a pretty successful move for us.
So it's been quite a good merge then over
Oh
the
yeah,
year.
it's worked very well. Yeah, yeah.
That's good then. Obviously, I'm new to Level, so I'm still sort of finding my feet, and the names I'm gradually picking up on. So sort of knowing a bit of the background now is quite nice to know how it came about. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
Moving on then. So what bucket list have you achieved, or bucket list item have you achieved already?
Um, yeah, I was trying to think about this one earlier, so I obviously knew the questions were coming. um, Memory was probably from a personal point of view, probably, and it's cycling related, was the first time I ever finished riding the Etapta Tour. I found that quite a milestone. It was a mountaintop finish on a pretty miserable day, and we started in Pau, went over the Tourmalet in pretty much rain all the way up to the top. I did the descent in completely cloud cover, couldn't really see anything, which was actually pretty good because I was
Oh
a
wow.
fairly bad descender at the time, and therefore all that
Yeah.
fear of going over the edge was completely removed because I couldn't even see anything over the edge at all.
Yeah.
And then finished on the Hotacam, which is quite a difficult climb actually because the gradient changes consistently. It's very hard to get a rhythm on it. Got to the top, phoned my wife excitedly to tell her. She pretended to be interested. Had to wait to descend because it was one of those finishes where you've got the riders descending the same road as people still
Yeah.
coming up. So they were letting us go in groups. So I got very cold at the top, shivered all my way down to the descent. Should have ridden back to the hotel, ended up jumping on the coach. I was so cold.
Wow.
And by the time I got down there, all of the foil blankets had gone and most of the food as well. So it wasn't a successful end to it, but the day itself was great. The other bucket list item I did enjoy, I think more of a personal, but was driving the Great Ocean Road in Australia.
Oh wow.
That was a memorable couple of days. So yeah, that was very good.
Some great memories there then.
Oh, wonderful memories! Yeah, just
Yeah.
it's very windy as well on the day. But I remember looking down and seeing the disciples stacks, the rock stacks along the coast, and thinking, I've sort of looked at these, and here I am, sort of
Yeah.
down it. Yes, that was a great little tour.
Right. That's some great achievements there. So what's still on your bucket list for you to achieve then?
Um, I've been lucky in life. I've done actually most of the things that I want to do. So I just got to scratch my head. I think the one I haven't done that I think I would have done before now. I always wanted to go to Iceland.
Right.
The place intrigued me, and I've never gone there, and I don't know why. I've looked at it several times, probably been terrified at the price of things there,
Yeah.
but still thought I should go, and yet never have done.
Never
So
have.
I probably do need to, you know, tick that one off as well. But yeah, it's still on the list to do.
It's probably not a place you could cycle though, is it?
Um, I think you need to be wrapped up quite well,
Yeah.
you know, or possibly, you know, protected against unexpected volcanoes as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then, if you were to have a dinner party, what three guests would you like to have at the table with you?
Well, I was asked this before and I did answer it. I went back and checked my previous answers, and I'm glad to say I'd have the same people again. So I'm going to repeat
All
all
right.
three of them. So the first one would be the engineer, Brunel, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Um, I'm an engineer by, you know, trade effectively, not engineer as Brunel. I was a telecoms engineer, but you know, I just admired him for the fact that not only was he a really good engineer, but he was a really good project guy. You know, from that he could raise the finance, he could get people on board, he could actually drive everything through, you know, to meet the vision that he had. And I'm a great fan of people who do stuff like that, you know, who actually set out with some clear goals and, you know, think that nothing is impossible unless it's physically impossible. And he just fits that completely to me. And, you know, just looking at sort of the things he's done, like, you know, Great Western Railway, the bridge into Cornwall, for example, steamships that he built, such a wide set of skills and such a level of commitment, which unfortunately led him to a bit of an early death in the end. But, you know, a
Yeah.
remarkable man. In a similar field, a similar attitude, I should say. Probably Clement Attlee, who was the first post-war prime minister in the UK,
Right.
almost like the unsung number two to Churchill in the war, but a man who was, as my mother said, was absolutely crucial to what Churchill did, and probably would have achieved far less without Attlee there. But a man who
Yeah.
changed, you know, in a period where we were broke after the war. He basically set out to make a huge number of changes that benefited certainly my generation coming up, you know, sort of 15, 20 years after that. And, you know, to do that and to do it in a style as well that he wasn't a great, you know, look at me type leader. He was an enabler. He was a person who got the best out of other people
Yeah.
around him, which is something I always tried to do in my own working career. So yeah, he gets my second place. And the third one is a very personal one. Is my granddad, who joined up as an underage soldier in the First World War, and fortunately
Right.
for my father and me, made it through the entire war. And like a lot of men of that generation, he never really told me much. He sort of answered a couple of questions I asked him. He didn't turn away, but he kept it pretty much to himself. And, you know, to be able to go back and ask him, you know, what drove him to join up and how did that experience feel? You know, he was wounded twice and gassed, and to find out what a 17-year-old, you know, at
Yeah.
that time in a really muddy, dirty trench in Belgium thought of that, when he shouldn't have even been there, would be a really good thing to find out.
Yeah.
You know, a conversation that we didn't have and we never will. But if I could get him back for that dinner party, I'd certainly ask those questions.
Ask those questions. Yeah. I think my granddad would be on my list as well because there's so many sort of asked questions that you think about now that
Yeah,
you'd want to ask. So yeah, that's
yeah,
quite a
they're never relevant when you're young, are they? It's just your
no.
granddad. And it's
Yeah.
when it's too late you suddenly realise, oh God, I wish I'd asked him about this.
Yeah. And I think as I've got older and had children of myself, like myself and stuff, it's how I'd go back and ask those questions now. So yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting dinner party that would be then.
I think so. Yeah, it'd be an interesting mixture. Yeah,
Lots of conversations, yeah.
yeah.
So going back to sort of Zwift then, if you were to be stuck in the Wotopian desert, what three items would you put in your rucksack?
Well, I think the first one I'd have to have is a water bottle. But when I had my water bottle, I'd make my way towards the Oasis area because there's not much point having a water bottle if you can't fill the thing up. Secondly, I think I'd pull out of my rucksack my satellite phone, which will obviously be a solar powered one, basically to let everyone know where I was and to see if I could get someone to come and rescue me. But in case they didn't get there, the third thing I'd have is I'd have a ticket for the train. You know that train that runs past the
Yeah,
desert flats that you see disappear into that tunnel? Well, there must be a station there. So if I
yeah.
needed to escape, as long as I had my ticket, I'd get to that platform, with my water bottle and satellite phone, obviously, and I'd jump on that train and I'd be out to the resort at Saddle Springs instead.
I'm sure with an engineering background, you'll be able to make something from things that you find out there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd have to form a team around me of people that knew better, and that I could organise. Yeah.
Yeah, so brilliant. Um, Obviously we spoke about Iceland. What's your favourite city in the world and why?
Um, it's probably a bit of a close choice, but the one I did recently, which lived up to expectations, was another one I had on my list for years, Seville
Right.
in Spain. And we went in about October, November because I think it's terribly hot there in the summer. But the whole vibe of the place, it's got a real sort of cafe culture feel. There's loads of bars and restaurants out on the street. There's historic things like the sort of cathedrals and gardens to look around, and um, had a fantastic time there. Probably close behind it, Rome was a very memorable place to go to. I'd spent the day before we went to Rome in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. And then the
Right.
following day, I was in the Colosseum. So you had about 2,000 years of stadium building to compare in one go. So, yeah, probably Seville, closely followed by Rome, I'd say.
Brilliant. Yeah, city breaks, I think a lot more people are doing them now and sort of venturing further afield with their city breaks as well. So,
Yeah,
um,
they're always good things to do, I think. Yeah.
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 So somewhere that you've been previously that you'd always go back to.
Um, I think a place I've been to in the last, oh, when I went there in 2016, and went for a couple of days and undercooked it slightly. Went to Tasmania. My daughter was working in Australia, so we went to stay with her for about 3 weeks, and we got a trip into Tasmania. We stayed in Hobart. Saw one of the original sort of convict jails and whole settlement down there. That was fascinating to see. Went up to the mountain that's up atop above Hobart, and Christ, was it windy up there? It really was. But there was a whole area to the north of the island that we just didn't get to see, and it's in my mind that. Yeah, I'd like to go back there. And of course, I'd have to go by Sydney or Melbourne, where I've got family, and both of those are good cities. So, yeah, that would be like a big circular return, I think that would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
big trip to organise as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you were to go out for dinner, what would you choose off of the menu? What's your go-to choices?
I suppose it depends which restaurant I'd go to. I tend to like anything that's got a bit of spice and flavouring around. So anything that's, the type of music, I like Middle Eastern food like tagines, Moroccan food, curry, Italian, anything of that sort that's got that sort of flavouring in is, high on my list always. But,
Yeah.
it's hard to beat a good tagine or, what did I have? A jira chicken curry on Saturday when we had the Red Hill Cycling Club Christmas curry, if such a thing. Well, does exist. I was there, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's something of that ilk, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been to Morocco twice this year, and definitely the Moroccan food is definitely up there for spice and flavour for sure.
Oh,
So
I've never been to Morocco. I never really got close. Did you enjoy it?
yeah, I've been 3 times now.
Yeah.
Twice this year and once a couple of years ago, but yeah, it's just lovely. Just I like the warmth, so it's nice to get
Yeah,
away and get some warm weather. So
yeah, yeah. I can
yeah.
appreciate that.
Obviously, out on your curry night at the weekend, then what would be your drink of choice on a night out?
Well, I had exactly what my drink of choice would have been. I had a couple of glasses of red wine, uh, which yeah, I've become more and more of a fan of. I like a craft beer as well.
Right.
I'm not really into fizzy sort of, you know, lagery drinks, especially at Indian restaurants, because I tend to end up feeling bloated at the end of it.
Yeah.
But I've become more and more of a greater appreciation of drinking a nice red wine these days. Yeah.
Very nice indeed. What is your favorite course on Zwift? This is quite a
Um,
difficult one.
yeah, it sort of depends what I'm doing. If it's, I used to organise the virtual time trials for my road cycling club.
Right.
Um, but actually only given up doing them this year. But one of the ones I used to enjoy on a time trial was Innsbruck Ring. You know, it was just a
Yeah.
fantastic mixture of, you know, you've got sort of about 60-70% of it is a flat out, you know, just flat power course. And then
Yeah.
suddenly you've got this bloody great, you know, awkward little climb. And then, but just when you think you've recovered, you've got to dig again over another horrible little dig, you know, before you eventually get over that bridge and get back onto the flat stuff. So, from a sort of torture and pain point of view, I've always appreciated the Innsbruck Ring. Just lately, I quite like some of the stuff they've done on that coastal expansion, particularly the ones that end up on the Itza KOM and
Yeah.
things like that. Because again, you've got this sort of nice rolling, you know, it's reasonably challenging. It's not as flat as people say. And then you've got that sort of two-stage, you know, blast at the end across
Yeah.
those two KOMs. And anything that avoids going up the grade has got to be a plus as well. So yeah, probably one of those
Yeah.
two.
I've not done the grade yet. It's something I keep thinking about doing, but I've just never woken up with the urge to do it yet. So
It's not that bad actually. It's okay, but it's just it's just one of those things where you go and suddenly just a ramp ahead of you, and it isn't going to get
yeah.
any simpler. And then at the end, when you think you've got up it, you've got these series of twisty hairpins to go around as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a challenge. Quite a challenge.
Yeah. Brilliant. Who is the most famous person you've met?
Well, I'm going to keep going here, and then I'm going to put two forward because they're both interesting. So the first one, people in the UK listening to this will remember, is that my father's cousin was Ted Rogers of 321 fame, Dusty Bin,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
game show host, comedian. Not a comedian that I really liked his work. I met him in real life, and he was a really nice guy.
Right.
Was just not a fan of his work. But yeah, that's so he'd be one of them. And the other one is probably more amusing. I have a cousin who was basically engaged to Posh Spice before she became Victoria Beckham.
Oh
And in
wow.
fact, not only have I met her, but she's actually been in my house at Christmas time. She was quite a sort of moody teenager at the time and didn't really communicate much. I suppose she's gone on and made that into a sort of career face, hasn't she? She's gone on to
Yeah.
be a moody looking, very rich girl now. So, yeah, those two, Ted Rogers and Victoria Adams, as she was at the time.
Yeah. Two very different people.
Two very different people, yes.
Um, Going back in time then, what was your first car that you owned?
This is an interesting one. My first one was a Ford Cortina. That's not interesting if you're of a certain age, because I should imagine there'd be a huge number of people who had a Ford Cortina. But my Ford Cortina was quite unique. It had a bench seat in the front, so you could actually get
Ah,
three people in the front. And it was a manual car, but it had a column gear change. So everything was done basically up around the steering wheel. So it was, yeah, quite a memorable, unique vehicle to have, and much loved between me and my friends at the time. It was I think I was about 19, 20 when I had it, so it was that time of your life when you're out on it, you know, and yeah, there was some good memories from that car.
It changed over the years, the old Cortina then,
Yes,
because
it
I
did.
I can remember them gradually, like the Cortina was gradually sort of fading out when I remember cars, but I can remember a few. I'm sure my parents had a Cortina at one point as well.
Yeah,
So
I think it turned into the Sierra in the end.
yeah,
I think that was the car that replaced it because it went through a couple of generations of model. There was a Cortina Mark One, and the one I had was the Mark Two. I wasn't quite as old as a Mark One, thankfully. And then you had this its sort of sporty offshoot, the Capri,
yeah,
which sort of, yeah, quite a lot of people aspired to having of my age, but I never got there.
never.
I just stayed with my unique Cortina.
What's your favorite color?
Uh, Boringly, probably blue. I suspect blue for a boy. You know, I can't really be any more original than that, and I can't give any great examples of a blue. I suppose my favourite football team, one of their colours is blue, and if I had to pick a second one, it might be red. So, as a Crystal Palace season ticket holder, that's probably the right mixture, especially the
Yeah,
day after you've beaten your greatest rivals, Brighton. So
yeah.
I'm happy at the moment with that
I'd say that
colour
was a good
choice.
result, that one as well, wasn't
It,
it? So
it was, and we played well for a change, and we haven't played well against them recently. So to go around, turn it around, and win at their ground, and be the first people to do it this season, um, yeah, that gives us bragging rights for a while. Yeah,
yeah, keep you going for a while.
yeah.
And final question for me then, the name of your first pet.
This is really hard because the only pet I can ever remember having was a goldfish, and I'm not sure I ever gave it a name. Possibly it was Goldie, or Fishy, one of them, but
Yeah,
I've got no memory at all. My parents were never going to have pets at home, um, and we haven't had them. But my daughters had hamsters, whose names I can't remember either. So yeah, I'm a 100% failure on that question, I'm afraid.
so if you had, yeah, you've had a goldfish but probably didn't have a name.
No, I don't think so.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. That's all the questions I've got for you. Thank you for joining in to the Level Racing Coffee Club, and hope to see you in Zwift soon.
Yeah, you sure will. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Simon.
Thank you.